Welcome back to Wednesday's MasterCoaches Wednesday Weekly Buzz. I'm Bob Bertucci, and I'm happy to be here with the other Master Coaches to discuss this year's NCAA Division I Women's National Championship bracket. Well, Bill, we're going to go ahead and get started with you. I'm going to throw up your top side of the bracket, which I know you've already completed. And we're going to start giving you a chance to talk about your side of the bracket and what you see happening.
Thanks, Bob. My side of the bracket is where Texas is the #1 seed. And if you see the chart that you can see on the screen right now, that's the bracket in burnt orange. Where you see yellow, those are matches that are going to be played where the opponents, the expected chance of winning is less than 60% or less than 70%. I was using Massey, the Massey site that does Division I volleyball rankings. They have a little cute thing where you can compare any two teams and ask it to play a certain number of matches and who wins the most matches, and it creates a percentage. And that's how I created this chart using Massey. So you can see Texas Farley Dickinson, that was 100% chance of Texas winning, a 0% chance for Farley Dickinson. So I got Texas moving on after the first round. And then Georgia and Townsend, it's a 69-31% prediction on the winning. And because it's below 80%, then I go into other criteria. And if you look to the left, you see points, hitting percentage, hitting error percentage. So their points percentage, they're 69% chance of winning. They score 17.5 points. Their hitting percentage is .238, and they make 5.17 hitting errors per set. Farley Dickinson has a 31% chance of winning. They score 13.1 points per set.
Are you talking about? You're not talking about Farley Dickinson. You're talking about Georgia Townsend right now.
Oh, I'm talking about Georgia Townsend. Thank you very much. Thanks for straightening that out. So Townsend is 31%. Yeah, that's pretty good, right? Georgia's 31%. Townsend's 31%. 13.1 for Townsend. 277 for Townsend, and 4.78. So Townsend has less hitting errors and has a better hitting percentage, but doesn't score as many points per set. Then I went to what teams that are in the tournament did they beat? And Georgia has beaten Florida plus 3 more teams in the NCAA tournament. Florida was their biggest win, the highest ranked team. And Townsend's highest win was over Pitt, and they've beaten 1 other team in the NCAA tournament. So based on those criteria, I picked Georgia to move to the next round. No upset yet.
Boy, tough deal there. Tough choice.
I know, right? Georgia Tech, Wright State. Georgia Tech, Wright State. Higher than an 80% chance that Georgia Tech would move on. So I got Georgia Tech moving on. Ball State, Marquette. 80% chance that Marquette wins that and moves on. So I've got Marquette moving on. Ohio State, Tennessee State. Ohio State moving on. They're at about 90% chance or better of winning that one. High Point, Southern Cal. Another 90% prediction on Southern Cal. And then Florida State, UNI. The percentages are 83 and 17. So that was kind of close, but not close enough. I've got Florida State moving on. And then lastly, Southeastern Louisiana against Minnesota. And Minnesota is about 100% chance of winning, and Southeastern Louisiana has not even a 1% chance of winning. So that's who I've got going through to the first round. Bob, do you want me to do the next round?
Yeah, let's go ahead and go to the next round, Bill. I'm paying attention to everything you're saying because you've been extremely thorough here. It's our mathematician in our.
But Bob, we should have Massey on if Massey's going to make the decision on all these.
Yeah,
Bill's
that's
not putting
true.
himself out
He's
there at all.
obviously
No guts, Bill, no
heavyweighted in that.
guts.
This is not a bracket from my heart. This is a bracket from numbers. Texas, Georgia. 90% chance for Texas to win, 1% Georgia. So I got Texas moving on again. Easy one. Next match, Georgia Tech.
Go ahead.
Next match, Georgia Tech, Marquette. 69% chance for Georgia Tech, 31% for Marquette.
That's going to be interesting.
That's going to be an interesting
I know,
one.
I know Mick is leaning towards Marquette on this one.
Really?
I know he is too, but I'm picking Georgia Tech to move on.
All right.
Ohio State, USC, 77% to 23%. I got Ohio State moving on. And lastly, Florida State, Minnesota, 93% chance for Minnesota, 7% for Florida. I've got them moving on. Then in my finals for the regionals, we got Texas, Georgia Tech, 84% chance for Texas, 16% chance for Georgia Tech. I got Texas moving on again, especially because they're at home. And then lastly, Ohio State, Minnesota. This is where it gets tricky. 34% chance for Ohio State, 66% for Minnesota, but they both score exactly the same number of points per set. One hits 260, one hits 247. One averages 5.09 hitting errors per set, one averages 4.6 hitting errors per set. So
who's playing the best right now?
I went with the late season win streak is Minnesota. They're playing the best at the end of the year, so I picked Minnesota to move on to the finals against Texas.
Okay.
Finally.
And then Texas against Minnesota. It's a 65% chance for Texas to win, a 35% chance for Minnesota. Texas, 18.5 points per set. They're hitting a whopping team 337 per set, and only 3.9 errors per set. That's
super.
That's way up there. Minnesota, 17.4, so they're only one less point per set. That's not bad, but they're only hitting 260, and they make more errors than Texas. So with all those numbers thrown in there, Massey plus the actual playing statistics, I've got Texas moving on into the Final Four.
All right, Bill, we're going to stop you there. We're going to
go back to
gears
debate.
now.
Okay.
We're going to give Mick a chance because I know he likes those points for and against.
Well, I will take the run at this, and I think the region you gave me, the West region, is we've got four of the best teams in the tournament. I mean, I think this is a super regional. So let's walk through it a little bit. We got four teams at San Diego. USD comes out on top there, but there's a match to watch, a really great match, UNLV versus Washington State in the first round. Those two teams are absolutely even. And I have to tell you, I listened to the committee talk about the body of work and that sort of thing, and we get everything except production. Production needs to go into this. And when you see what teams produce, it's at a certain point, it doesn't matter who's on the other side. It's hard enough to hit the ball on the floor to start with, and if you can put it on the floor enough times and you hold your opponents to a low enough standard, that's called differential, then you're going to be in the hunt up to a point. So I think both of these teams, I always pick Washington State and they always let me down, but I'm going to pick them one more time in this match. But I think Washington State, UNLV are even, and we'll see what happens there. San Diego's going to win in that. And then in the second round, San Diego will move on. And then in the second group of five at Kentucky, this is a very interesting. First rounds are easy. Kentucky wins first round. Western Kentucky wins the first round. But boy, this Western Kentucky match is going to be so highly competed on the second night, the second round. It's just amazing. Kentucky is scoring 18.9 points per set themselves. That means kills, service aces, and blocks. They're doing that themselves. Western Kentucky, on the other hand, is producing at almost the same level. And so putting both of these teams from the same state together at Kentucky gives me a 5-game set match. Kentucky gets the advantage only because they're playing at home there. So I think Kentucky moves forward out of Kentucky. In the third set of 4, we have Houston, South Dakota, Auburn, and Creighton. And I haven't been a strong Creighton supporter. They just seem to play soft at the wrong times. But I have to tell you that Creighton's size and their production gets them through here. A match I think to watch is South Dakota, Houston. I'm a big Houston fan. I think they're coached extremely well. I think they play the game right. But I think Creighton, I think South Dakota is an unknown. And yet, if you look at their production, they're right up there. The only difference is who they're playing. And so we don't know a lot about, after Central Florida in Houston's group, how those teams are. So I think this could be a match you don't want to miss. You want to see this match. But I'm picking Houston to come out and play Creighton in the second round that night. And I'm picking Creighton to win, but only by a whisker. I mean, this is a doozy of a match, but Creighton's playing at home. And that's why these, when you get to play at home in this tournament, it gives you an advantage in this kind of thing. So I see Creighton going forward. And in the 4th set, it's Stanford. They've got Pepperdine, LSU, and Hawaii out there, and nobody can stay, and that group can stay with Stanford. So what's exciting to me is if you look at the 4 teams coming into Stanford for the regional, if this holds out the way the numbers say, and the numbers do say this is the way it's going to work out, you've got USD versus Kentucky, both of those teams producing over 18 points per set, both of those teams having a differential of 3.9 to 4.2, and then you have Stanford versus Creighton. And the reason that is going to be a good match, Creighton is producing at 18.2. Stanford produces at 18.7 points per set. But Stanford's differential is 4.1. Creighton's differential is 3.9. Gives Stanford the advantage for probably a tougher set of teams to play in the conference, and Stanford's at home. Creighton's size, though, can stay with Stanford's slow high ball offense. And Creighton plays faster with their big kids. So it will be a pretty good match, but I think Stanford probably wins 3-1 there. And that gets us to the San Diego Stanford final, which I think if you get, I missed one, and that's San Diego playing Kentucky, and that's another doozy, but I give San Diego the push there, even though Kentucky is scoring more points per set than any team in the country. And remember, they're scoring at 18.9. When they won the national championship, they were the only team scoring in the 19s. They scored 19.1 points per set. So I think this is a heck of a match. I think it gets San Diego and Stanford together. I think it's a 5-game match in the finals, but Stanford at home, unless San Diego brings buses up to Palo Alto from San Diego, Stanford wins in 5 and moves on. And that's the best regional that I can see out there.
All right, Matt.
That's a mouthful.
Matt.
Sorry.
Way to go, Ed. So later on, we kind of go through all these, right? So we get to debate after a while.
Oh, there's no debate, right?
No debate. You've got it down here. Oh, absolutely. Well, I think I'm next, right?
Go for it.
So, okay. So I'm just going to go through quickly, and I don't have those massive percentages that the nifty thing that Bill had up there, but definitely looking at a lot of the variables in there, and including all the things that Mick was talking about in terms of points given up and hitting percentages, and what how many points you're producing versus how many you're giving away, and some of the key wins and matchups with players. So looking at it that way, I'm looking through the Colgate and Pittsburgh, and I don't think we have the screen up there. Bob, you have that on another. It's green. It's the green one.
Right.
But anyway, so you do have, you know, Colgate and Pittsburgh, and I'm gonna assume that the you know, the Massey ratings there is a little bit high for Pittsburgh. They're playing at a really high rate and doing a nice job with that. So I've chosen Pitt to come out of that, and then we have James Madison with BYU, and again I've pulled BYU in that matchup.
Put a
there.
star beside that one.
But because you think it's going to be
It's going to be close.
You think it's a little bit closer.
James Madison's better than anybody knows.
Yeah, and I know that they're playing really, you know, they are really playing at a nice pace. They're doing some good things over there. I get concerned with some of the matchups that they've had and some of the, you know, losses, and they've lost to Texas State and to Yale and to UMBC, which isn't, you know, we all know Yale's playing really well, and but I just don't have any solid wins that I can see here that give me an idea of are they ready for you know, BYU, and so that's kind of where I came. They're scoring at 17.76 points per set, which is really strong, and have done some really nice things there. You know, at 2.71 blocks per set, but their size isn't necessarily matching up as much. So we'll see how that kind of plays out there. Okay, after that, and that's one to watch for Mick. So we'll debate that a little bit later. And then we've got Iowa State and Florida Gulf Coast, and this one was, you know, really when you're looking at a lot of it, you're saying with Florida Gulf Coast, they're at 17.6 points per set, hitting 267. And holding their opponents to 166, which is really pretty strong. And then you're looking across at Iowa State, who's at 16.41 points per set, hitting 213, which is pretty low, and holding their opponents to 203, which is scary. However, their win column against great teams, it's really impressive with Texas and Baylor and Kansas, and I'll even put TCU in there, losing to Kansas State, Wichita, and UNI, who UNI is a tournament team. But then Florida Gulf Coast has lost to North Florida, Central Arkansas, and Liberty, with Maryland maybe being the best win there. And so the body of work, I actually pulled Iowa State from this one. And Mick, I know you're going to debate me later on. I know you've got some thoughts about that as well. So we'll fight later. But we can move on from there. The next one we have is Penn State versus UCF, and Penn State, UCF. This is oh no, wait, I have UCF and Yale. My bad. Yale is doing really well. You know, you look at it, 17.9 points per set. They're really been playing clean volleyball with a 246 hitting percentage and holding their opponents to 147. You know, their blocking is low in my estimation, you know, not blocking at a high rate. And then there's UCF, which is at 18.5 points per set with 317 and 158 holding percentage. You know, Melville is she's a beast, no doubt, but with the block of Yale, I think that one goes to UCF. So pulled them out. And then Penn State is playing UMBC, and I've just basically pulled Penn State out of that one, and have given them the nod in that. Wisconsin playing Quinnipiac. Again, your Massey rating might be quite high on that one, but I do have Wisconsin moving on. Washington over TCU, which I know a lot of people have been talking, and we don't know the health exactly of Washington. So you know, that's a little bit hard to know. I know they've been injured, and it looks like they might be day to day at times. But when you look at Washington, they're scoring 17.26 per set. Their error rate is 8.3, and TCU is at 16.38 with 9.67 errors per set, 288 versus 218 hitting percentage. And both of them, Washington is letting their teams at 243, which is a little bit high, and 213 for TCU. But with that being said, I went ahead and advanced Washington in this one. Where's the other thing? You know, with some wins, Oregon and Washington State, you know, being in there, and TCU, where's my wins for TCU? Somebody might have that handy. I know it's on a sheet here somewhere. But yeah, so I pulled Washington from that. And then, and the Massey rating, I do have this 7 out of 7 times played, Washington wins 97%. So I've got Bill backing me on that one, Mick, if you're going to fight me.
No, I'm not. I think even though Washington's in a down spiral, they win there.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Just checking, because I know you. You'd like to fight just to fight. So,
No,
I'm kidding.
unless
I'm
it's a
kidding.
good fight.
Oh, Mick the contrarian.
I just like to give him crap. Okay, so go ahead.
All
Oh,
right, Kath.
I have to keep going, don't I?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So then we've got Florida. We've got Florida
Yeah,
versus
Florida Pitt. Who's going to win that?
Oh, well, you've jumped the whole Iowa State thing, didn't you?
Well, I did. You know, those guys are -2 differential. How the heck can you think that they're going to win? They'll upset somebody. You already have them upsetting in the first round, so they can't upset again.
Yeah. Oh, okay. You've got that upsetting. Okay, that's only
Yeah.
one. You can't overlive that thing there. So, all right. So yeah, you're going to get right to the nitty gritty here with Florida and Pitt. I've chosen Pitt here, and okay. So looking at their point production, Pitt is hits for 13.99 kills per set. We're at 13.18 for Florida, but with the point production here, you know, we have 2.75 blocks per set for Florida. They're a good blocking team, really strong in that area. Pitt is at 2.59, also doing quite well. We have the hitting percentage is pretty tight here, 267 to 220, 268. We've got 160 for Florida holding their opponents to 151 for Pitt. I mean, that's all pretty tight. But with Pitt, I have them just with so many strong wins, but they do have that loss to Townsend. And, you know, this is a tight one, as you well know. And I like Courtney Bizzario. I think they're playing a lot through the middle and the outside, or the middle and the right, with Serena Gray and Courtney Bizzario. And Serena Gray is doing a nice job in there. And then you've got Merritt. I love Merritt Visa. I think she plays really well on the right side. They both have powerful right sides. You know, Markova is really playing well, and she's hitting 300.
Who's going to win?
Dang you're putting it to me. I'm asking for some help here, but I did have Pitt moving on. So
Oh, finally.
Did I say that, guys?
We get a winner.
I said that early.
Pitt at home.
Just like a man. Just like a man, you were not listening. I said Pitt early. Okay, Pitt is at home, yes. Okay. All right. So then where are you you're gonna make me jump on these other ones, right?
Well,
so we have UCF and Penn State. All right. So Penn State, I do have Penn State moving on here with UCF. So I'll say that right away, so Mick doesn't give me crap. And you know, we have UCF is at 18.59 points per set, and Penn State's at 17.06, and they actually have more errors per set. They, though, have so many really good wins with Stanford, Oregon, Minnesota, Purdue twice. Their losses really are Michigan and Illinois, which are still top 100 teams. Cash Williams, when she gets going, she's pretty strong, but Melville's great. But I worry about the dependence that they have, UCF, on Melville and her to point produce. And I think that with the block that Penn State has at 2.69 blocks per set, I just think, you know, with that, you know, you also have Zoe on the right side over there for Penn State, Weatherington, and that's just a really big block, and it's a strong one to go against. So I did put Penn State advancing on from this point. So let's see. So we've got that one done, right?
you think BYU is going to lose to Pitt?
Oh, yes, I did. And I did have that. You don't have that. Okay.
No, I just asked the question.
Okay, I've got BYU and Pitt if you want me to go through that one.
Well, just what's your final outcome?
Yeah, no, I had Pitt, obviously, because I wouldn't have moved him on, would I have, Mick?
No, don't think so.
But I did have Pitt beating BYU, and you know, Pitt's a really solid team. I like their system. Like I said, I like the right sides and the middle, and I like you know, Vasquez Gomez. I think that she might be struggling just a little bit lately, but I think she's really very solid. So I had them moving on with that win over BYU. And they're at home, as Bill would say. So we've got that going for them as well. All right, who have I missed here? I've missed basically our Wisconsin and Washington game. And
Yes.
so we're at Wisconsin, and who's playing really well and has gotten better as the season has gone on. And Washington, we do know, just has been a little erratic lately, just, with some of the injuries that they've had and that type of thing. But when you look at it, Washington is at 17.26 points per set. Wisconsin's just over that with 18.17, which is really strong. Error ratios, Wisconsin wins that one as well. Hitting percentage, 288 to 266 for Wisconsin. But Wisconsin is so good at holding their opponents down, and they're playing against really good teams, and they're holding their opponents to a 157 hitting percentage. And I really like that with fantastic wins and really finishing the weekend of the Big Ten really strong with some key wins over Ohio State and Nebraska. Bad losses worry me a little bit with Washington and what would be considered maybe a bad loss, but when you're talking at this level, a little bit more. But I just think, some questionable losses maybe for them at that level with Arizona State, Utah, who's always good. I'm not taking anything away from these teams, but with their wins being to Oregon and Washington State, those are only the two that I have there. And Wisconsin, I just pull them through on that there.
All right, Cathy, we got to wrap it up. You're giving me
Yeah, you do. Okay.
through my whole bracket here.
All right. Oh, yes, we need time for Bob. Wisconsin then and Pitt. Well, we didn't even talk Wisconsin Penn State, which is a redo again, and that went down 5 games last time. Really good match. I still advance Wisconsin in that matchup, but it's probably going to be a really good one to watch. Florida versus Pitt. I have Pitt winning against Florida. I think I said that earlier.
Who wins?
I said Pitt. Gosh, are you going to
No,
listen?
no.
Pitt beats Wisconsin?
Pitt,
Pitt,
no.
Wisconsin.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't say that. I have Wisconsin winning.
Oh, okay. All right. Just checking.
Okay, well, we're going to move on to the bottom right side of the bracket. And I'm sorry I don't have that screen up there because it would make it much easier for Cathy to work her way through.
Yeah, thanks a
We had
lot.
that up there.
You could figure out how to push the one with the green bracket.
I know. Technical difficulty.
Thanks,
Well,
Bob.
I'm going to work through it step by step, going through the first rounds.
Okay.
And I probably have the most difficult, more evenly matched bracket of all of them. There's
Really?
a lot of toss-ups in this.
Really? You believe that, Bill?
Mick likes his.
You
Mick
believe
likes-
that?
No, I don't. I don't
No, if
believe
you
that.
saw
I
my
don't
bracket,
think- I don't
Bill,
think- I think
have
you got the easiest
all
bracket.
nasty stuff. I have all the numbers. I have all the RPI. It's just a shame I don't have that up there. But I'll go ahead and walk you through it. Well, the first one, even the first one's interesting. Nebraska against Delaware State.
Oh,
Now, Nick,
okay.
the point
We're gonna be here
differential,
for a year.
the point differential goes for Delaware State. So you're using your method only. You'd be picking Delaware State.
Yeah, that works up to a point.
It works when
you
it's at the.
know the opponents. You have to take that into consideration a little bit.
And of course, who they're playing over the course of the season. But that was an easy one for me. So Nebraska moves forward. The next one, that's an even match. Kansas, Miami. If you look at the numbers, all right, the point differential ends up being 1.3 for Kansas, 1.4 for Miami. It's pretty, by the numbers, it's pretty even. But, being a little bit more emotional than the rest of the group, I'll probably lean towards, they're playing in Nebraska. Kansas is going to have a load of fans up there. I think we'll go with Kansas on that one.
You're not going to cry on us, are you?
No, I won't cry.
Okay.
But Ray's an excellent coach. I think he'll have his team ready. Going to the next first round is Arkansas against Utah State. Again, another even match. I mean, it's pretty much a dead heat there. It's pretty much a left side dominant match, I think. Utah State has some bad losses, giving Arkansas a little bit of an advantage. By the numbers, it pretty much comes out, Arkansas is getting 17.6. they produce a match. Utah's 17.5, but Arkansas has some real good wins over the year. I'd go with Arkansas. Our next match, LMU against Oregon. That one, LMU is hot right now, but they're playing in Oregon, so I think I would go with Oregon. Moving down to the second half of that bracket, we got Baylor against Stephen F. Austin, Battle of in Texas. Again, I think that's an even one. This could be the upset match in the bracket. The numbers kind of lean a little bit towards Stephen F. Austin. But they're playing at Baylor, and I think Baylor's had a pretty tough schedule. I'd probably lean towards Baylor.
3-0.
3-0 with Baylor, you think?
Yep.
Okay. All right, next one, Colorado against Rice.
You can take credit for that being a tough one.
Oh, you think so?
I'm going to give you one on that one.
I actually think I was going to go with Rice on that one.
I think a lot of people will.
Their numbers are better, in all areas. Colorado does have a strong schedule, but they have a number of losses. They had 10 losses in the season. Rice only has 3. They're in Texas. I think Rice has the edge there. The next first round is Purdue, Tennessee. And, of course, I have,
You burned all that orange stuff.
my emotions go towards Tennessee, but, and actually their numbers, their production is a little bit better, 17.1 points per game compared to Purdue's 16.9. But you got Purdue's strength of schedule, I think, is going to help them. I've watched SEC play this season. I watched, the Big Ten. The Big Ten ball control is just at a different level, I think. So I'm gonna go towards Purdue on that one. The last one in the bracket, again, that's an easy one for me.
Stanford
against Louisville. I think Louisville's going to win that one.
No, we thought you were picking Stanford.
No, I couldn't find much to justify that. Though their production is just about as good as Louisville's. But the difference between Louisville's points scored and the points scored against them, Louisville's only getting 13.8 points scored against them. They're playing some serious defense. And Louisville's at home, so I mean that's an easy one. But if we work it backwards, we look at Purdue going against Louisville. I'd lean towards Louisville, and part of that is their defensive play. They do beat a little bit in terms of points scored against Purdue, and they're playing at home. Baylor Rice, that's an even call. But I'm leaning towards Baylor. I'm giving them the edge in this one. Arkansas or Oregon. The numbers are, again, they're close. And Arkansas has been playing really well. But I think that's also going to be even match. I got Oregon coming out on that one. And Nebraska against Kansas. I'm going to go with Nebraska. Their numbers are definitely better, and again, when you go beyond that, I got Nebraska against Louisville. Both those teams that is a dead heat. Their production is about the same. Their points scored against are about the same. We're talking about with intensive points. I think that's going to be a 5-game match.
All right. Well, looks like
Any thoughts, Mick? I see the wheels
Well,
turning.
I think in your bracket, I would say this, Baylor is kind of an unknown. I think if they're playing at Louisville, Louisville's got the advantage. I think that's the thing you've got to look at there. But Baylor and Rice is interesting. That's going to be at Baylor, and that's why you gave Baylor the advantage. But Rice has something to prove, and since they beat Western Kentucky for the first time ever to win that conference, I say ever, but in the last 4 or 5 years, they're riding a high, and they want to prove something, and they've got seniors on that team. Baylor's big, and they hit the ball hard, but they make errors. That's an interesting one. When you get to Louisville, and you have Louisville, Oregon, Nebraska could be very interesting because Oregon can score the ball, and they play some defense, and their numbers are good. And Nebraska's numbers are not good offensively. They're down at 17s in points scored per set. But the thing that Nebraska has done well this year is they've held their opponents very low. And that's how they've been successful. The thing is, they can't score the ball well enough to win the championship. They can only try to outcoach the other teams at this point. So I think
I'm a little worried about, Nicklin Hames, who's been out. But
yeah, she's been in and out, right?
She's an X factor. I mean, you've already lost Knuckles, and those two provide a lot of leadership. So I think that if Hames gets back, I think that settles that down a little bit in terms of offensive productivity in her setting. But yeah.
The thing is, if Louisville plays all these teams at home, even Nebraska, I think they have an advantage.
Mm-hmm. And that's always that matchup. That's a interesting one for sure. I mean, Danny understands everything, and they play well against each other.
So I just looked to see who I thought were going to be the top 8 teams, and then I moved backwards to see where they could get upset, and then I used the numbers to try to make a case for that. But I circled some of these matches. I circled the Colorado Rice match as being one that I want to watch. Colorado seems to always be better at the end of the season, and Rice is good. They just play in 2 different environments. They play, Colorado plays at altitude. They're going to have to come to Texas. They play in the Pac-12. Rice plays a little lighter schedule, but they've scheduled tough this year. So they'll be comfortable in Texas and won't have to fly very far or drive very far. So it's really quite interesting. Bill, do you have any comments on those? You've seen those teams a little bit.
Well, Colorado, you're right about Colorado. They're better at the end than they are at the beginning. And, but I think that, and it's probably because I know them a little bit better, but the setter for Rice can really make a difference for Rice in close matches. And Rice has won out of all the teams playing. I look at how many 5-set matches they've played. And Rice has played the largest number, I think, of 5-set matches this year of the teams at that point in the bracket. And they've won the majority of them, where a lot of teams that have gone 5, like Texas, 2 of their losses are when they go to 5.
Is that a positive or a negative that you played a lot of 5-game matches? For instance, Rice plays in a conference that's not quite as tough, I believe, as some of the other conferences. Is that an advantage that they played 5-game matches, or does that mean they don't turn it on until the end?
Well, I think that what that means is that every game is close, and that puts a lot of stress on the other team. So that's where I think that it could be an advantage for Rice to get into the NCAA tournament and play a 5-set match, where some other teams maybe haven't had as many 5-set matches, and the personality of the team has a hard time maintaining itself in that 5th set. So that may be where Rice's advantage is, to get teams into the 5th set where it's a sprint instead of a longer match.
Well, guys, we're going to go ahead and switch from our discussion right now, save some of that for our buzz reaction. But we do want to finish up with our buzz show today with our recruiting tip. So here's our Weber's weekly recruiting tip. Know what kind of social environment you want in a school. Factors such as school size, location, religious affiliation can all be a factor in your decisions. You know, a lot of times when I was counseling, or basically better word would be recruiting athletes, I'd really try to talk about all these different factors. What are the factors you guys think are important in terms of an athlete's decision?
Well, last night I was watching a men's basketball game, Virginia against, who was Virginia playing? Michigan?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And they were talking about a big man on the Virginia team. And the comment was made that he started one place and he transferred in the portal. But when he transferred, some of the teams said to him, we could do better for you for NIL if you came here than if you go to Virginia. And his dad made the comment, my son wants to be at Virginia because he wants to be at Virginia and all the things that Virginia represents. And that's exactly what this thing's talking about. He's picking the school for what it is, what the academics are, and what he gets out of it socially and the culture there. And that's why he chose Virginia. So I think that's, the dad was speaking about his son's desire to be someplace just exactly as that, the recruiting perk talked about.
Right. I agree with you, Bill.
Steve Sarkisian was quoted this morning at Texas football coaches saying the similar thing, that he said you have to be careful in the portal for people that are out there wanting to be purchased, as opposed to people that want to be at your school and really want to play at that institution. That's a pretty interesting thing the coaches are putting out right now. So
it can't be money that makes your decision. It just can't be. It's got to be. I've seen so many kids over the years go into the wrong school for a reason other than that they're going to be a good fit, and everything else, you know, all the things that you're talking about right now, it's they trump it for the name of a school or for money or what have you. And it's got to be for the right reasons.
usually the loser is the employer, not the employee.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Good point.
Yeah.
So true.
All right, so I think we're ready to go into buzz reaction, if you guys are, and then we can continue that conversation we were having earlier, Mick, with you and Bill.
Yeah.
Which one?
Oh, go ahead, Bill.
No, I was going to say, which discussion?
Yeah, well, I wanted to throw out a couple questions to you guys. Then we can get back if we remember what it was we were talking about. But should we give credit to teams that beat teams that are in the tournament because they won their conference? Cathy, I think you made mention that somebody beat Northern Iowa, and that was a feather because they beat somebody in the tournament. But yeah, Northern Iowa got in the tournament not because of their high ranking, but got in the tournament because they won their conference. And that prompted me to ask that question. And then let me go to the second question and throw out, and then you guys can comment. Does Wisconsin benefit from all the television coverage they've had recently on the Big Ten network? You know, Kelly's out there putting out 250,000 viewers. This is big time, yada, yada, yada. And I got to thinking about, I've watched Wisconsin 3 or 4 times now, and I haven't watched anybody else 3 or 4 times. I'm wondering if we get Wisconsinized by the TV and don't really get a true view of what everybody else is doing. When you look at Wisconsin's numbers, and the reason I brought this up is Wisconsin's numbers are 4th or 5th or 6th best out there, and yet they got a 6'9" kid out there, or 6'7" kid out there. They got, you talked about them being big in the block and yada yada yada. But what's caused them to not have greater numbers playing in the conference they're in? And so that's
what numbers are you talking about?
Well, let me give you Wisconsin's numbers here. If you looked at Wisconsin,
7 points.
They come out
third.
They are really about 12th in production numbers. They're 18.1 kills per points per set. Their they've held their opponents to 14.8 kills percent. So their differential is 3.3. Of all the teams that are in the tournament, 3.3 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. When you look at teams in the tournament. So if we look at differential as being a major thing, usually the differential, anything over 4 has a chance to win the tournament. Wisconsin's the one team that differential is a lot less. It's 3.3. However, that's good.
3.8? You had them at 3.8, I thought.
I'm just looking at revised stats this morning. So
I was looking at what you gave us today.
yeah. I sent you a revised copy about an hour and a half ago. But the point is that anybody that has a differential of 4 point above, I think, can win the tournament. And that's not Wisconsin. So it's very interesting to see how this turns out. Louisville's 4 point above, Stanford's 4 point differential 4 point, Western Kentucky's differential is 4 point, Marquette's differential is 4 point, Texas differential is 4.8. That gives them a huge advantage in my mind. And Townsend is 4.9, and we blew them off to Georgia. So we may be seeing Townsend in the second round. Yale, who you rightfully quoted as having 18 points per set, but their differential in the Ivy League is 5. There's nobody at 5 other than Central Florida. It's 5.1. And Melville, I think rightfully you guys reported that Melville has to go against one of the best blocking teams in the country right now, Penn State. And that's the reason that people lean a little bit more towards Penn State, because they think those blockers can slow Melville down. But, Central Florida has done it all year.
Yeah, but Nick, Delaware State has a 4.5 differential.
Yes, but you have to look at their conference. I mean, the teams I mentioned, the only one that you can challenge too, Western Kentucky's conference, you can challenge that conference, and you can challenge Yale's conference. But that's the only 2 out of 17 that you can. Everybody else is in a Power 5 or in a WCC.
No, that's a good point. But I guess my point was just that you can't
not
just
the American
go by the
Athletic
numbers
Conference.
only.
And the ACC, AAC, yeah. That's Houston. But Houston and Central Florida are exceptional this year.
Yeah.
As is Rice and Western Kentucky. Okay. Those are 4 teams that play in conferences, and they've still raised their level by increasing their scheduling. And they're usually, most of them are senior dominated, or at least led by leaders that are seniors. So I worry about Wisconsin just because the numbers. Now, if we see Nebraska and Wisconsin in the finals, that's going to tell us something. It's going to tell us something about defense, because Nebraska gets there by allowing teams the fewest possible points.
Yeah, they're at like 13.4 right now.
And coaching at a very high level. You might want to say the same thing about Wisconsin if they get there. It may be that, but those are things that go into picking your bracket. I mean, if you're going to pick your bracket out there, you got to take some of these things into consideration. You can't just go with your heart, or you're going to get fooled.
So
right, but when you talk about point differential, and giving it value, you've got to kind of. They don't like to talk about strength of conference and ranking conferences, but obviously the stronger the conference you're in, the smaller the point differential is going to be. So,
well, not necessarily, but probably.
That makes a case for Nebraska then, because they're in a pretty tough conference, and
I don't think they score enough. There are 5 other teams that score more than they do. 4 other teams that score more than they do in the conference.
In their conference. Michigan scores better than they do in the conference. They just can't stop anybody.
Maybe more than that, yeah.
Yeah. So I think in terms of value, within a point, 2 points of point differential is not valuable when you start comparing teams from different conferences. You can compare the teams from the same conference, but I don't think you can compare easily teams from different conferences. I don't think it correlates to winning as highly as some other things would.
Nebraska is the only Big Ten team ahead of Wisconsin
In what?
in differential.
But what's interesting is that Nebraska hitting percentage is lower than Wisconsin's.
But
But
still,
that just shows you that in the conference, the point differential, it's they're playing these matches within those groups at the top of the league or what have you, and they're tighter games. They're just it's a tough.
Exactly.
if you look,
There's not as many blowouts is what you're not seeing.
I don't know. There are a lot of 3-0 matches, Cathy, this last 3 weeks. I mean, a lot
There
of
have-
3-0 matches in the
Yeah, so surprisingly, there's been a lot. Everybody's been saying
This year's been a little bit more separate than I've ever seen. Like there's a definite grouping for sure.
I mean, you look at Ohio State's in free fall, and yet I think nobody challenged Ohio State beating USC. If that moves forward to that point, I think USC's got a great chance to beat Ohio State. And Ohio State got to host, and they're at one of the lowest points right now. They've just been in free fall, and I don't know why.
Ohio State.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ohio State's been in free fall. Yeah. USC has been on the upswing. Their only bad move in the last 3 or 4 weeks that I could tell was losing to Washington 3-0. Washington woke up from slumber for 24 hours and then went back to sleep. But they lost the next night to Washington State.
Well, you've got if you've watched Ohio State, their setter one match in the last 2 or 3 weeks played with a full leg brace on and looked like she could hardly move. So even with the brace off, the question is how healthy is she in a long match and a long, serious, hard fought
It is
match?
what it is.
Oh, I know, but that's what I'm saying. When you say
That's
what's
things to
caused the
consider.
downfall,
That could be
that's a
could be
thing to consider.
same with Washington.
Just like same with Washington and same with Nebraska. If Hames isn't playing,
It's a difference.
they still, and with Nichols not playing, Hames and Nichols, Kinsey, they're both, not only are they leaders, but they're both 2 of the best defensive players on that team.
So that gets me to the point. So why do we pick them?
Because they're still better than the teams that they've been put up against.
I don't know. I don't know that that's true.
Well, maybe not in the USC match because of what you just said, but
I mean, Skylar Fields is playing like the player of the year right now. Their team's just not that good to get the attention.
And we
But
don't
she's
know.
destroying the ball.
well, another thing I'd like to discuss is the first round having Stanford against Pepperdine. I mean, looking at all the other first rounds for the first seeded teams,
Pretty tough. Yeah.
that one seems to be completely out of whack.
Well, Pepperdine was 4th in their conference. Why is that out of whack?
You said.
Well, just looking at some of the other first round matches, I think Pepperdine is a stronger team than some of the other first number 1 seeds had gotten. That's my thought.
Well, Pepperdine RPI is what, 40 or 50, something like that.
Yeah, and UCLA's stats are better than Pepperdine's, and UCLA didn't get into the tournament.
Pepperdine's 45,
Right.
45 in the RPI.
Right, but if you're the number 4 seed, you should be getting the 60. You should be getting the 62nd RPI, not the 40th RPI.
Yeah,
Why
that's my point.
You think Pepperdine's a 4 seed? I don't think
I don't know that they're. I don't know that they're a 4 seed. But what I'm saying is for instance, Farley Dickinson is the 64th seed in the tournament, and their RPI is 258. Yeah, and Minnesota, who's the 8th seed, they're playing somebody whose RPI is 138, and then you go down to Pepperdine, and they're in the top 100. So they didn't get a weak automatic qualifier from a weak conference. They got the weakest team from the West Coast Conference, which isn't necessarily that weak, is at the point. It's
So
not that.
that's probably the difference between seeding 32 teams and seeding 64 teams, I guess.
Exactly. Once they seeded the 32, it's the lowest RPI team within 400 miles.
So still, the fact that the dollars are still a big factor in the pairing up of some of these matches, and that one just happened to be in the first round. I thought was a little out of whack. How about?
I had another question though for Mick. Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to ask Mick one thing. You had the point differential for Wisconsin at a 3.3 with Pittsburgh at a 3.2. So who do you pick in that one?
I picked Wisconsin because I think that Pittsburgh's too small on the outside. I think as much as you like to watch them, they go behind more often than not when they need to side out, and it goes right into the strength of the other team. So I think Wisconsin wins that battle all the way around. However, I'll say this: Wisconsin hasn't played extremely well against non-Big Ten teams. So there's some thought that Pittsburgh has a good shot there.
Yeah. And Wisconsin blocking at a 3.02. I think both of them have right sides that are very talented, right? I think Bazzario as well, but I really love Robinson. I think she's an X factor. She's blocking 1 point. She's blocking over a block of a set, but I love how they go to her. They use her.
Yeah. And I'm amazed that she's that successful. I've watched how the other teams are blocking her. And I can't believe somebody hasn't decided to slow her down or can't slow her down at least a little. Take a kill and a half away or something.
You know? She's there with Schreck or whoever's, when I love Hart. Danielle Hart has been big for them, and she's come on as of late, just really playing well, hitting over 400%. She's hitting 443.
Don't you really think she's the leader out there for that?
I do. I think she's the leader.
I think she just runs the show.
And I think that she makes it hard for the pins, and I think it's their balance that really is making all of them successful.
Well, she in the last 4 matches,
she's been crazy.
She's only had 1 hitting error in like 60 attempts in 4 matches.
Yeah. She's doing great.
15 a match. That's pretty good.
Very driven. She's very driven. This is her 6th year, I think. And she's like, really, this is it, man. She didn't want it to be like, it's all the Redkey thing. It's me. I came out and look at me go. So, she's doing great. I'm really proud of her. So
who
they got a Michigan State.
Who was the 6th team from the Big Ten, Kathy, that got in?
6th team would be
Purdue.
Yeah, it would be Purdue.
And who was a 7th team?
Free fall also.
7th team from the SEC.
That's the one who got in.
That was LSU.
Was it
LSU?
Auburn or LSU. Look, there are 3 teams and I'll say this: there are 3 teams from the SEC that should not be in the tournament, and that's Auburn, LSU, and
Tennessee.
Yes, that they are either negative or below 1 in differential in a conference that you should be able to play offensively very well. And
come on, Mick. Tennessee's differential is 0.88. It's still positive.
0.9, and it's still positive. That's right. Better than -2 or -3 for LSU there. And Colorado State, who was on the bubble to get in, is -3. That's the other thing I saw that I find tremendously interesting. Texas State, UCLA, Ball State, and Colorado State were supposed to be the 4 teams on the bubble. Ball State gets in. They have a differential of 0.7, but Texas State has a differential of 2.2. UCLA has a differential of 1.6, and Colorado State is a -3 differential. And everybody said Colorado State was this close, and I want to know why.
Right.
That's not the body of work. The body of work is what they produce all year.
Okay, well, we're pretty much approaching our hour right now. So I think we want to save a little of this reaction for next week's show, where we're hoping to have some coaches come on, but also we'll come out with a bracket that will be filled in with what happens this weekend.
I think you should get your tickets for the West Regional. I think you should buy those right now. Those are 4 teams in the regional. I'm picking 4 teams in the regional. All can win the tournament. And I think if you want to watch good volleyball, you go to Stanford and see those 3 matches, because those are going to be worth their weight.
Did you also want to bring something up about the thing at the Final Four for
Oh, the
the?
showcase, the college transfer showcase. Thank you, Kathy. It's now open for registration for all athletes. NCAA 1, 2, and 3. If those athletes have gone into the portal, all right, they're eligible now to sign up for the showcase at the AVCA convention.
How do they sign up?
They can just go on to volleyballmastercoaches.com.
And there's a prompt there that tells them where to go.
Yeah, just look for college transfer showcase, click on that, and it's pretty easy from there.
I heard there were only 60 spots though. Is that right?
Yeah, only 60 spots, even though they'll probably fill up pretty quickly in the next week or so. But that's all we're going to do for the first year.
Be
And
really
so
good.
all the coaches at the convention that want to watch them train for 2 hours are going to be there. They can see what they can do.
All right.
So I'm a college,
Opportunity
I'm in
to-
the portal. There's also a link for hotels, for housing for me while I'm there. I get to work out for 2 hours, and all the coaches at the AVCA convention, it's legal for them to come and evaluate me if I'm in the portal and I'm there at the convention.
Right, that's the one day that the coaches are allowed to come out and do recruiting prior to when it opens up later on in January.
So all
And
you
if I'm-
portal athletes out there, get to the
That's
convention.
a
Yeah, if
great
I'm there,
point.
I want to see somebody in person. I don't want to see digital tape. I want to see the person. I want to see how they relate with their teammates. I want to see how they go for balls. I want to see their attitude. I want to see all of that.
And if I like them, I can talk to them afterwards.
Sure can.
That's awesome. Yeah. What a great opportunity.
Just can't offer them money.
Yeah. Right.
Bring your NIL contract. By the way,
New world, brave new world.
University of Houston volleyball team just signed a team contract with an eye doctor company, the whatever it is in Houston, $1,000 a player, every player.
Well, they're going to get a better look in the tournament, so maybe we should move them up a round or 2.
Was that a pun, Mick? A better look?
Good check. I don't know. He still got it.
All right,
You gotta
guys,
have fun
thanks. It
doing
was a
this. You
great
gotta
one.
have fun.
That'd be a